Welcome to 10 Forward. Please have a seat. Madam Guinan will be with you shortly to take your order. We hope you enjoy tonight's show. Peace and long life to everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Geeks Let's Talk. May the 4th be with everyone. Man, it is great. I know some of you all are probably holding out for May 25th for the actual official Star Wars Day, but it's May the 4th, so we are going to kick it off. Loki just finished up a great EU panel.
Yeah.
What I'm planning on talking about today is, well, obviously Star Wars, but also I kind of want to go over the history of the EU. This has been something that has been a passion of mine for an incredibly long amount of time. Since about 1994 is when I really got into Star Wars. I was about 13 years old, and I started with the Timothy Zahn books. They came out in 1991. So I'm going to kind of go over, and co-hosting with me, I'm sorry, I'm being rude, is Potato Revin.
Hey, my experience with the EU is mostly games.
And that's fine. You can talk about EU games all you, definitely. The games are part of the EU because some of them actually, in some areas and some parts, actually developed into.
Yeah.
Develop into actually. I mean, some of the things like was it The Force Unleashed,
KOTOR,
Shadow of the Empire? You know, those were games that were. They were multimedia branded. I mean, comic books, books.
I'm actually friends with someone who worked on Force Unleashed and KOTOR.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I was just going to say hi to the chat for you.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Unfortunately, I've got a couple things up, so let's see. Good morning, Purple Valkyrie. Good morning, honey. Hey, Jeff B. How's everybody doing today? Let me throw this in here if anybody's interested in coming in to talk EU.
Well, you're just setting it up. Let me tell my. Can I tell my sad tale?
Sure.
So I have a very sad tale. I hit 101 subs the other day, and YouTube busted me down to 92 subs. So I busted me down to 90 subs after it. I was all delighted and everything, and so now I'm trying to build back up. I'm after getting 3 subs. So throughout this, I'll be like plugging myself. So if anyone just would care to give me a sub, trying to get me back up to 100. I'm violently adorable. I do streams, things like that. We've been doing Jackbox. I've had Bionic Belly Button on a few times. We have different topics, and I'm currently working on a review of the latest episode of Bad Batch.
Yeah, I know you were the one who reminded me it was coming. It dropped today. I'm gonna check it in a little while.
It's 72 minutes long.
Oh, so it's like a little mini movie. Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I thought it was going to be maybe just a 25 minutes. So
did I. It was
long in a 25-minute. That means it was basically 3 episodes put together.
Yeah, and it's still counted as episode 1.
Oh, that's cool. But here's the thing. When you look at, there is a lot of levels of history with the Star Wars EU that started long before Kathleen Kennedy got involved. And there are certain levels to it that a lot of people don't always understand or are not familiar with, as opposed to someone like me who is very immersed, very familiar with the history of the Star Wars EU and how it all played out. So this is kind of how it originally started out. These are clips from Wikipedia. Mainly, I don't like using Wikipedia, but this is Wikipedia, and this is pretty much where you're going to find pretty much anything you want about Star Wars. The Gospel or Canon, as we refer to it, includes the screenplays, films, radio dramas, novelizations, the works of spin-off of George Lucas, original notes. The rest are written by other writers. However, between us, we read everything as much as we can into account of an overall continuity. The point was they were trying, the idea is at some point during this part is when they decided to start canonizing things in a certain way. Whereas most other IPs we have, you take Doctor Who, Star Trek, Aliens, Predators, The Predator, you'll find comic books of these, and you'll find novelizations and stuff, but they don't try to fit into some kind of overall canon to each other. Yeah, there's no big push for that. Even in
Star Trek, which there's some fantastic Star Trek books out there.
Yes, but Star Trek flat out said none of this. The only thing that they considered canon at that time was, hey, the shows are canon, the books are, nice little stories, and there are some good ones. But Star Trek made that decision a long time ago, whereas Star Wars decided to go into actually putting a cohesive history together. Now, this did not start out that way. That's the thing. I think a lot of people mistakenly think this all started from the beginning. It didn't. It actually started in the 1977 era, right when the first movie came out, and we're going to get into that. So originally, there were many levels of canon. These are three of the levels. We'll go to the other ones. Okay, so you had G canon. G canon is, well, at the time this was written, the 6 movies, any unpublished notes, whatever George basically had written down. So for things like the radio dramas that were done, those are considered G canon unless they conflict with the movie. So I believe in the radio drama, Luke has a different designation than Red 5. So there were continuity issues even from the beginning. Anybody who ever said this was perfect was full of shit.
Is that where Luke was referenced as Gold Leader?
I don't know. I thought he was referenced as like Blue 5 at the time.
No, I've heard him referenced as Gold Leader before. Somewhere. Just one reference to him as Gold Leader. And this is from in Comic Con. It was in the book from the 80s. It was, bless you.
Mm.
Yeah. So, that's been a big issue from the beginning.
T-Canon, I'm not going to go into T-Canon right now because T-Canon really is where things go completely to hell. This is where and we're going to get into that. Now, C-Canon. C-Canon is basically, okay, for example, the name Coruscant, that was coined by Timothy Zahn. Obviously, George Lucas did not have to bring that in for the prequels, but he did. So it went and jumped from C canon up to G canon. Another one, Quinlan Vos, Alia Secura, the T-24, YT-20. The reason why these are is Quinlan Vos was literally an extra in the background of the Phantom Menace. He's that guy. His guy has a little yellow strip going across his face. And they ended up making an entire story arc about him. He became one of the most popular C canons during Dark Horse's run. Leia Secura was another one. The YT-2400, that was Dash Rendar's ship. That was done in Shadow of the Empire, so it was C canon. Got bumped up to G canon when George Lucas did the Star Wars special editions for Episode 4, and you see the Outrider, and it's confirmed it's the Outrider leaving Mos Eisley. So
yeah,
and so there was a lot of times where a lot of C canon, because it had been written over the last 10 years, some of it ended up becoming G canon because George liked it, and
there was there's actually a C canon who he was a Jedi. He was written into a book, right? Then they brought him in. He's the big alien dude with the big buggy eyes in the cantina scene.
Yes.
One of his race. Then they brought him into Star Wars Clone Wars. Not the Clone Wars. Current Disney Clone Wars, but it was the previous one. the cartoon one. Then they brought it into the CGI one and made him canon. And there's been a couple of people of his race, and there's also been a couple of Jedi of his race there as well.
Yes, I believe there was one in the Dark Times comics.
Yeah.
So originally, going back to when we started out with this stuff, originally it would be your G canon would have been, for lack of a better term, your 3 movies at that time before the prequels, and then what was C canon. Now that's when things get a little interesting, because C canon and this kind of stuff did not come until really the 90s. And then you have these canons here. Secondary canon is a lot of times what they would call what Marvel's original stuff was. The Han Solo adventures are actually, that's an interesting one. They are considered the Han Solo adventures and the Lando Calrissian adventures, because they were written in the beginning, and I'm going to get into those. Some people consider them as canon, like the Marvel stuff. It's interesting, but the tier levels, most stuff from S canon on could be brought to a higher level. It was kind of interesting. Detours was a comedy that was supposed to come out. Seth Green was working on it. It was going to be a comedy spoof. And they did a bunch of episodes, but it got shelved after Disney bought. And then non-canon is, What Ifs, Infinities.
Yeah.
Those are pretty simple. And some of those can actually be some of the most fun. Like, for example, in Star Wars Tales, which were pretty much all Apocrypha canon, you actually had a battle between Darth Vader and Darth Maul. At one point, it's kind of interesting, but you have that in Rebels, Obi-Wan killing off Darth Maul finally. Interesting thing, it's on Tatooine. This happened in an Infinity story at one time. I think it was in Tales. It was, they had shown Darth Maul with mechanical legs, and this was before this had been done in the Star Wars series. Yes, this was a completely different area.
Actually, I have a fun bit of trivia for you. You know the fight scene between Maul and Obi-Wan?
Yes.
If you look at it carefully, this was pointed out to someone, one of Dave Filoni's friends, right? Darth Maul does exactly what he did in The Phantom Menace, right? His exact same fight moves, full work and everything. And as soon as Obi-Wan realizes this, he changes his position.
Yes.
And he changes his footwork. And that's why he cuts him down, because they said you can see in Obi-Wan's face that he has played this 10 billion times over in his head what he would do. And now it's finally his opportunity.
Yep. So let's get into kind of the really beginning of the Star Wars EU. And this is all going back into most of these are in the 70s. So you had Star Wars from the adventures of Luke Skywalker. Technically speaking, this is your first EU story. This actually, of course, came out before the movie, and, as novelizations sometimes do. But that was it. I mean, at that time, that was it in the movie. Shortly thereafter, George Lucas had pinned this idea of a low-budget sequel if Star Wars did not succeed. So that spin-off was the one right below it, The Splinter of the Mind's Eye, written by Alan Dean Foster. This is actually the first Star Wars actual sequel. The issue with this book, though, is it really does not fit well within the rest of canon, especially when you get to The Empire Strikes Back, because there's a battle scene between Vader and Luke in this, and Luke cuts off his arm. Vader falls into a pit. And the only main characters you have are Luke and Leia. There's no Han, there's no Chewie. because when this thing was done, they figured it was going to be low budget. He figured he couldn't get, probably Harrison Ford back. And of course, this all changes when Star Wars becomes a hit, and then you move on to Empire. So in a sense, you had your very first almost swipe at canon with Empire coming out, and Splinter of the Mind's Eye really doesn't fit.
Yeah. Is it possible that George Lucas read the book, and when he was making the second one, he's like, I don't really like this book?
No, actually, I've read the excerpts of this book, and actually, George Lucas was quite fond of it and praised Alan Dean Foster for his writing.
Oh.
But you got to think too, Alan Foster, at this point, he has nothing to go on other than a movie. So he doesn't know anything about Luke, Leia, Han, really Vader, except for whatever maybe or George Lucas tells him. So he's got to go with what he's got here. So he wrote the book, and yes, but unfortunately, the book doesn't really hold up if you try to use it as the springboard to go to Empire Strikes Back. Then the movie, of course, we finish up with Return of the Jedi. And you had these two sets of series that were created. They were trilogies. You had The Adventures of Han Solo and the Lando Calrissian Adventures. And Brian Daley did a fantastic job. L. Neil Smith did a fantastic job. In fact, the Lando books are actually, I think, more enjoyable than the Han books.
Okay.
What you had here, though, is a nice factor is now you've had 3 episodes to understand Han Solo and 2 episodes to get to know Lando. These, of course, both take place before the movies. So the first set of books is Lando with the Millennium Falcon. And then the second set is the Han Solo books are actually after Lando books because Han has the damn ship. This was pretty much, for that time frame, by the time you get to the end of Return of the Jedi, this is pretty much your book canon. And then this is pretty much your comic book canon. You had the Star Wars Marvel books. That ran for, I believe, 107 issues. And there was a lot of stories in between episodes 4, 5, and 6. Now, unfortunately, the artwork is terrible. The artwork is utter garbage, folks. I really don't think they were putting a lot of effort into this. Have you ever seen any of these comics, Brevin?
Oh yeah, oh my god. So my Comic-Con is very good at historical stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it has all these Star Wars old books and everything on the bookshelf. They go within seconds. I've seen these comics, right? Use this fucking coasters at Comic-Con.
Wow.
Yeah, they fucking hate them, especially the Ewoks. If you have something Ewoks, you're going to get nothing.
Well, the Ewoks and the droids comic books, I can understand why they went with that look. They were dealing it off the style of the cartoon series that were out, which I cannot believe all of Ewoks, both seasons are on Disney Plus now.
I know. And nobody's watching them.
I'm going to have to get around to it just for nostalgia. And
well, you are old.
And then, of course, you had the droids. And if you look at it, they didn't last very long. Ewoks didn't even last, lasted 2 years. Pretty much droids lasted a year, a little more than a year. The Star Wars comic started in April 1977, ended in 1986. And other than that, folks, that was it. This was your Star Wars, minus unless you add in the Ewoks movies and the cartoons. I didn't add a slide for that. But
don't forget the holiday special.
Yes, the holiday special too. Although the holiday special is considered was considered in canon. So
yeah.
It was considered in canon.
It was, and George Lucas has stated that if I could get my hand on each and every copy of the holiday special, I would smash it with a hammer.
Yeah, unfortunately nowadays that'd be impossible with the internet.
I know, but he can come to...
That son of a bitch is going to be out there forever. There's always going to be somebody who just has to watch it. I was guilty of that.
Are you okay? Do you need a hug?
No. It was years ago. I fully recovered.
Did you start crying?
I don't know. I did like the B. Arthur scene.
Okay.
Jefferson Starship. Okay, Jefferson Starship. That should say it right there. Jefferson Starship. Okay. I'm sorry. You got anything you want to add to these?
No, not to the comics. You can keep going.
Yeah, the one thing that happened at the end of, so give you an idea where Marvel Comics ended was they ended after, here's the thing, they didn't even do Return of the Jedi. They had to do that as a special. They had it actually as a separate, even though they did 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 in the comic book run. The series went on for a while longer, and you had this, I believe they were an extraterrestrial force that came in, or a dimensional, I'm starting to think I know that's the Yuuzhan Vong, but
there was someone who the Yuuzhan Vong was based off of. I think that's them, where they're a force. They got molded into something else, but there's this ancient race who the force cannot be used against them. It was used when Revan came along, and they were very, very powerful in the dark side of the force. Then they used this dark side bomb that drains their powers away. But they were originally...
the thought bomb. You're talking about the thought bomb.
That race was originally inspired by an older race in Star Wars comics. I just can't remember.
Well, what happened here was they ran out of material. They had nothing else to go on. So they created their own small storyline, and they came to an end, and they ended it. And it was over, and that was pretty much it for Star Wars, for the most part. This is where the EU begins. 1990s, 91 to be exact. Heir to the Empire, Del Rey drops it, or Bantam. I think Bantam didn't have him at the time, did they? I think Bantam's contract was up, and this was now Del Rey. And then Dark Horse releases Dark Empire. They're released about 8-9 months apart, and they're completely different media platforms. You have Del Rey doing the books, the licensing for the books. You have Dark Horse with the licensing rights to the comic books now.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. They're still not connected yet. This is not connected just yet. Because you have Heir to the Empire. This is where we're introduced to Thrawn. This is also where you get introduced to the idea of taking Luke's hand and using it to clone somebody. Yes, folks.
Yeah.
Yes. Maybe not in this one, but the Thrawn trilogy. There was a Luke with 2 U's in his name, and he was a clone, and he was an evil clone, just like Joris Cast. Or not Joris Cast. No, I think I said it's Joris. The guy with his hands blown out. I can't remember his full name off the top of my head now. But this is where we get introduced to one of the greatest villains ever in Star Wars, and that was Thrawn.
Oh, yes. The Chiss himself.
Yes, the Chiss himself. The man who was the Grand Admiral. He was a Chiss. And
have you heard his new canon now?
No, I have not heard his new canon.
Do you want to hear it? Because
I'm very... Not now. We're talking about good stuff.
No, this is good.
What?
Basically, the reason why he don't really give 2 flying F's about the Empire. So basically, the reason why he joined up was because he was such a brilliant warrior and tactician, was basically so the Empire would not see his planet. That's the whole reason why he joined the Empire.
In the EU, he's actually used by the Emperor that's why he's out on the rim and stuff, because it later gets talked about he's the one, the Emperor actually is, I guess, somewhat aware that the future of the Yuuzhan Vong might be coming.
Yeah. As far as I know, it came from a series of visions that he's been having of the Yuuzhan Vong coming into out through the barrier.
Now, obviously, at this time, the Yuuzhan Vong were not even a thought in anybody's eye.
Yeah.
But this is what we're talking about. This is where the connective tissue starts to really starts to come together. So you have the Heir to the Empire trilogy taking place 4 years after Return of the Jedi. So 9 years after the Battle of Endor. Or sorry, not the Battle of Endor, the Battle of Yavin. Get your battles right. Dark Empire basically takes place about a year later. And in this is a comic, obviously, Dumbledore. This is where we get the rebirth of the Emperor. Gee, I don't know where we've seen that since.
But I have no idea. We've never seen this.
And then Luke does go to the dark side. In this series, Luke goes to the dark side, and it's actually, he's got a plan, but he ends up failing at his plan, and he realizes he's failed. He even says in the book, I've sacrificed everything and lost. And it's actually Leia who helps bring him back to the light side, and they both defeat the clone, and that helps them to defeat the clone of the Emperor. And this is, like I said, these are your two basic first parts of the EU canon. That's pretty much where it is. And for the most part, until the prequels come out, you would get almost nothing of the older era unless it was so far back it didn't affect anything. So you could go into the future all you want, and then you could go into the past, but you had to go far back. Hence, for example, Tales of the Jedi starts out 5,000 years before A New Hope. And really some great writing, really some great story arc. You get Dark Empire 2, you get Empire's End, you kind of get a trilogy. And this would become a standard format for a lot of their stuff. You would have trilogies come out. Dark Horse was really only doing like 6-issue comics. They were doing miniseries, and they weren't really doing anything serialized except for X-Wing Rogue Squadron, which is fantastic comic. I mean, anytime you can get something with Wedge Antilles in it is pretty damn good.
I mean, let's face it, when everyone saw Wedge Antilles, they all smiled. Even in that shit movie, when we got to see it was Wedge Antilles, I was, for my review on my channel of it, #shameless plug, the guys who I was with, one of the guys was there and he was drinking and he spat up his drink and he said, "Holy shit, it's Wedge Antilles." A girl I was watching. Yep. The girl I was watching with, she turned around and she's there and she's like, "Hey, come back." Called over her husband. She's like, "Look, it's Wedge Antilles."
Yeah, that and seeing the ghost, that was about the only thing I enjoyed.
Yeah.
So
well, actually, we saw Daisy Ridley's nipples, so that was the thing. Anywho, moving on.
So this is where the fun begins.
Oh yeah.
1991 to all the way up until when did Disney buy?
2015.
Yeah, 2015. So we had this just mantra of stuff come out over the next 91, 01, so about 24 years. We had almost a quarter century from the time of Del Rey and Dark Horse. And the other thing I need to point out too is Scholastics also did quite a bit of young reader comics that are considered canon. Hence why I've got them there. You have The Last Jedi. You have, I think one of those is that monster series they did. They did like a kind of a Goosebumps series at one time.
Isn't it called like Nightmares or something like that?
Galaxy of Fear, I think is what it was called.
That's it.
Yeah, Galaxy of Fear. I used to actually have all of those. I think I sold them on eBay for like $100.
Ooh.
I know. I could have got a better deal now, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Now, this is where things start collaborating and getting interesting. This is the point where they start collaborating with each other. Dark Horse and Del Rey, and then the story group, not the story group as they're called now. Leland Chee had the Holocron. You'd have writers doing stuff, looking at the Holocron, looking at characters, getting information. Some of these folks, Kevin J. Anderson did another trilogy called the Jedi Academy trilogy. And actually, at one point, somebody took the character of Coran Horn and actually did an intercurl of Coran Horn in that freaking trilogy. And it's actually pretty good. It was the first time a Star Wars book had been done in first person.
Yeah.
So for a long time, you had many good books, many good series. Dark Horse came out with things like Crimson Empire, which dealt with the Royal Guards, the Crimson Royal Guards. Actually, another great series, trilogy of books. You had right here, I said, you got Quinlan Voss right back there. Got your boy right there, buddy.
Yeah, there he is, man. Dark Revan himself.
Yeah. And then you had a few like this, Shadows of the Empire. This was such a massive media market. It just was crazy back then when this came out. They were calling it, they were making a big deal out of it. They were doing commercial ads for this thing. They had the game platform figured out. They were doing a comic book. They were doing a book. They were saying this is like the official in-between. The whole point of this book was to be how they figure out where Han was, trying to figure out here. And you had Prince Zizor in it. Just one, Dash Rendar was in it. It was just a massive multimedia platform, and it was a fucking success. Massive. Yeah. People were wanting YT 2400s. They wanted Outriders. They wanted to put an Outrider right next to their Millennium Falcon. They wanted to get a Dash Rendar, put him next to it. I knew people who were like, man, I got to get me a Zizor and put him next to my Vader. Or they wanted to get Chewbacca all changed up looking like in his bounty hunter disguise he's in this book. And then there's also his androids, Sizor's android, Assassin, who is another character. There was just so many characters that were in here that became very popular in the EU among fans.
The EU done something very unpopular and then corrected it and it became popular again with Revan. So, Dar Revan had a training droid, a K8 something, okay? And it was designed to kill him at every move. And he used to train with it and everything like that. Then when Revan got locked away in stasis, the droid got locked away in stasis, but all the other Siths were like, Revan honed his combat abilities by using this droid. Why don't we mass produce it? So they mass produced it. And when the droid came back, he got to see his inferior copies and went on a killing spree and proceeded to kill everyone in the shipyards where it was built. All the droids, all the ships, and then the planet where the droid was basically widely used in combat schools. This one droid went on a killing spree and killed the entire planet.
Yeah. I think those were called the HK models.
Yes, HK-48.
That was 88, but I'm double checking here. HK, it might have been. Oh, HK-47.
Yes.
HK-47. Meatbag. I always love that. Yeah, that was. Let's do a little bit of that, though. I want to talk about the Plagueis trilogy, one of the greatest, too. But, talk about a little bit of the games. I mean, KOTOR was the
amazing.
The fucking Star Wars game at the time.
It was 1 and 2. Dark Kreia. Revan, on TikTok now, thanks to that game, there are people who are literally reenacting lines to it in full-on Revan's wife's costume.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it looks fantastic. And people are there, and they're psychologists looking into the mentality of Revan. Like, he's this good, where people actually have his psychology, and they're like, Revan's not angry, Revan is broken. And then in the MMO KOTOR, Tor, right?
Yeah.
They had Revan come back, and Revan got to meet his descendant. And he's standing there and he's looking at her, and she's like a Jedi Master. She's a badass. She's got her own kids and everything. And he's like, my line is strong. She's like, we're a very big family, and they're all amazing Force users, and they're descended from you. And Revan died because Revan had no need to stay alive anymore. And he wanted to go to the Force, and he became a Force ghost. But there is a problem. Revan spent so much time bouncing between light and dark, light and dark, light and dark, that there was what was called the Shadow created, which is a exact replica of Revan as a living being, but pure dark side energy. And you even have Revan standing there, and he's like, as a Force ghost, you go to find good Revan. And he's like, it's unusual. What? Where I get to see myself and I have to go and kill myself. If on some level, this is kind of
funny. Yeah, it can be.
It is. And in Comic-Cons where I go to, people who are dressed as Revanites kneel in front of the cosplayer who's Revan, and they start saying, teach me, Master, teach me the ways of the Force.
He was in The Force Awakens. He really, not The Force Awakens, sorry, KOTOR.
Yeah.
When you got the reveal, you took the pic, you realized, you got that little reveal of the mask. That was kind of an interesting reveal. You're kind of it was a good reveal. It was kind of like, oh shit, I'm the bad guy.
Holy shit. Oopsie.
Yeah.
It's like in Assassin's Creed where you're going around killing the Templars, and then you kick one of them over, and she's got an assassin's logo on her neck, and you're like, wait, what? And you're standing there, and then when you turn around, you lift your hand up and you take your glove off to clean your hand of blood, and you've got a Templar's mark on you, and you're like, oh shit, we're bad guys. Oh no. I absolutely love that. It's like, oh no, we're the baddies. But what I absolutely loved in the multiplayer game, The Force Unleashed. Hello, Jim the Viking.
Hey, Jim the Viking. May the 4th be with you, buddy. We're discussing EU and, honestly, history of it and why it still matters to so many of us.
It does, because the thing, you also have to look at it like this. So many people got into Star Wars proper. 6 movies is 6 movies. Like 3 movies at the time, right?
Yeah.
And a shit TV special. But a lot of people got into falling in love with certain characters and then went over to the movies, not the other way around. Like one of my friends, she said that her brother, when he passed away, she said her mom said to him, you can go into his room and you can take whatever you want. And so she opened it up, and the same with me, Jim.
Yeah, Jim, that's a lot of what Viking was saying, or not Viking, Revan was saying.
We're different people, Andy.
Huh? I know. I'm really fucking up with names today, man. Yeah. We are actually talking about KOTOR right now.
Yeah, and SWTOR.
And then eventually we'll get to The Force Unleashed.
So she opens up she goes into his room as they're cleaning it out, and she takes all of his comics, and she said that even to today, whenever she sees like Darth Kreia or Darth Nihilus, she can still feel like she's close to her brother. And
That's awesome.
and there's loads of stories that you get all over the place like that. Me, I was bullied so badly. The Star Wars games, SWTOR, KOTOR, both of them, Force Unleashed, Star Wars in general, Star Trek, all these were an escape for me.
For me, it was an escape. I got bullied too. I also got into a lot of fights because I have a bad fucking temper.
Yeah.
Probably, and I did get my ass beat a few times. I ain't gonna say I won all my fights. I had a few I got my ass whooped bad.
Yes. Oh, hey.
SWTOR, I played for about 2 years to kick my World of Warcraft MMOs were sort of dying out on me by becoming so accessible to try to reach bigger audiences. I liked the KOTOR, I liked the Force Unleashed, I liked Fallen Empire even. Or Fallen Order. I actually quite enjoyed that game.
I have the new Star Wars game, the latest one, Squadrons, and I've never played it.
But when it comes to the online game, I never could get into them.
The problem with the online game, I completed the online game, and for me, the biggest problem with it that killed it, because it's still making a lot of money. A load of people have actually forgotten to cancel their subscriptions to it. But the fact is, to get any DLC, you have to pay for it, right? And it's not like, oh, I'm going to buy this DLC. No, you have to pay for it. You have to make it a subscription. Above the base game, you have to get a subscription. And then you get access to the full game.
Good, let the greed flow through you. But I mean, when you think about some of the games, we had our Nintendo games, our Super Nintendo games of basic Star Wars and stuff, and this was for a lot of people, this was the only way they were going to get to do it because there weren't a whole lot of getting a lightsaber wasn't always as easy. But something else to remember about a lot of these books, comics, and even some of the games, a lot of the success of these things was mostly word of mouth. I mean, there's no internet at this time. There's no internet. There's no YouTube trailer for this stuff. There's cable TV, and that's it. Pretty much it. Satellite is just now coming in. Satellite's just becoming a thing.
I used to work for, as part of the end part of my work in the church, right? I used to do history in this church for 3 years. And the end part of it, I was doing history in the library. And whilst I was there, this girl who she used to work with me, she was saying how disappointed she was with the Disney and how sad she was and everything. She's like, the 6 movies and the Clone Wars. She's like, there's no more Star Wars. And I went downstairs. I'm like, I'll be back in a minute. I went downstairs and I got most of these books and I brought them up and I left them on the table and I'm like, there's Star Wars. And I have seen her at Comic-Cons, I have seen her in things, and now on her collar, just underneath her collarbone, going down onto her chest, on the left hand side, she has the Jedi logo tattooed on her.
Jim the Viking, yes, that is exactly what I had to do. If I wanted a Star Wars book or a Star Wars comic, I had to go to the only freaking bookstore in town that had that stuff, and that was a comic book store. You know, you weren't finding many Star Wars books on your Walmart bookshelf. They just weren't really there. But you go, and you weren't going to really find the comics. But if you went to a comic book store, you would, you could find the books, you could find the comic, and if you couldn't find the comic, you talk to the comic guy, and he'd order it for you.
So I wanted to get into the comics when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I went. Now Ireland is not friendly to others, like to the other, for years. And it took Comic-Con. Our first Comic-Con happened in 2010. That was when the first Comic-Con happened in Ireland. And there was the only real store was up in Dublin, Forbidden Planet. That place has been going since the 80s. And that's the only one that it's famous all over Ireland. And people are like, if you go to Dublin as a nerd, you have to go to Forbidden Planet. It's like, if you have to go there, you have to go and see like the nerdy stuff. You have to go and see what they have. But everywhere else didn't have it. And one time I went in and I said to the guy, and I'm like, hi, do you carry any of the Star Wars books? And he's like, no, we only sell books that people will read.
Oh, that's a joke.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh.
Fuck you then.
Yeah, fuck you then, bitch. But this is back in the time when I asked that, it kind of made me felt more of an outcast. But now I found people like all the guys, and it's like, oh, hey, look, I fit in. Yeah,
Jim the Viking said it best. I had to go to a comic book store. I mean, I have friends. I had a few friends who we were into Star Wars, but they couldn't afford this stuff. I was fortunate enough to be able to have a family with a little bit of disposable income that could help me buy this, and I'd let my friends borrow this shit. And I'd be like, yeah, go read it. Yeah, oh yeah, fuck yeah. I'd be like, go, yeah, read it. Cool, I'm done. Here you go.
And now
I shit you not, I'd buy a comic sometimes, 2-3 issues, and literally we'd sit down and literally circle jerk around the damn comic book. It's like one person read it, one person, everybody's, we're going around reading the same comic. Everybody's getting a turn at reading it.
Yeah. Literally one, and I find it so amazing that I thought basically growing up, it was rare. Like, cause you'd always see on mainstream TV and shit like that. It's like, if you're a nerd, people will laugh at you. But my best friend, she's as big of a dork as I am. I'm planning on meeting people next year who are nerds like me. And my cousin Ray, on his back, he has a Pokeball tattoo in the shape of a Death Star.
Nice.
Yeah. And my friend Matt and panelist, hey, Viking, will you click on that link that's just above you there in the chat from me and give me a sub? Thank you. I need friends. But she's there and she's like an otaku, and we talk for ages. Today, I was talking about a Revan cosplay that I'm planning, about a Mandalorian Revanite. And it's so refreshing to actually get to talk to people like that. Because if I talk to my family about it, they talk to me like I have special needs.
Yeah. That was a hard thing for a lot of people. I mean, people like the movies, but they're like, they would see us and we'd be having role-playing games or Star Wars or Star Trek or some comic. And of course we get the shit kicked out of us because nobody thought they thought we were all terrible people. It's like, oh, you're losers reading this shit. Yeah, who the fuck's laughing now, bitches? Suck it.
What makes me laugh so much? And the MCU is so popular. Star Wars, The Mandalorian is so popular. And my 14-year-old cousin is like, oh my god, I love The Mandalorian. I'm like, girl, I have been in love with Star Wars since before you were specking your mother. So I've been in love with Star Wars since your mother was a teenager. I'm like, so I grew up with this. And I even spent €100 on a combat lightsaber. Thank you.
We had such a I think that's one of the reasons why we're very tight-knit group of geeks and stuff, why we are able to platform out. I mean, most of us are all, we're in our 30s, 40s, some of us 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
But we all grew up around this stuff, and we can all understand and relate some of the enjoyments, the passion, because for a lot of people, Star Wars was like, Star Trek and Doctor Who. It was something more, and people wanted a fix, and this is what was provided fix. And what they did was they decided to do something a little different or very different, and connect the stories together. One of my favorites is the X-Wing series. That's where Coran Horn, that's where Wedge Antilles have a lot going on. There's some great characters in that show that you get in that series that get killed, and you really are wrecked by it.
Yeah.
Because now go ahead.
I'm following the current comics, and the current comics have gone good again. Right? You have Vader bleeding his comic, his crystal, but you see him as Anakin Skywalker. Anakin killing Palpatine, going back on his knees. Obi-Wan, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. Taking out clones, taking out the power structure of the Empire, rebuilding the Jedi Order. And you see him there with his 2 kids on the ground. And he's now a Jedi Master. And he's old, and he's looking at his grandkids. And the Jedi are flourishing again. And this is what would have happened if Anakin had turned back to the light. And Anakin is, of course, wearing prosthetics, but really, really advanced looking compared to Vader. Right?
Yeah.
And then you see him, and he just lifts his head up and gets copperized, and he's like, no! And then he's like, you will obey me! And the crystal then goes from being blue to red. And that's him pumping all of his anger and his rage into it. And he's so, at that moment, he was so close to turning back to the light.
That's probably what fuels his anger the most, is those few times where he almost came back to the light, and he's forcing himself to push all his anger and hatred and everything, all the pain, to force it into him to make he doesn't change. He doesn't want it, because I think that in some ways he's afraid to go back.
He is. He's actually afraid, because if you'd hear him in episodes say, no, it's too late for me.
Yeah, but do you really think he believes it?
I think at that point he did. Up until he met Luke, really got and Luke turned him back to light. I think at that stage he's like, no, I want to be a Jedi again. I'm tired of being, because somebody, my cousin, he pointed out that Vader had the only time Vader was free was when he died.
Yeah.
In his entire life. He was born a slave. He was then a member of the Jedi Order who was very strict on him. He had a master all his life. Then he became a Sith who had a master who had officers above him.
And he was a slave to the dark side now.
Yeah, and he was always, he was, the only time where he became free was when he died. And I'm there and I'm like, wow, fuck. And somebody said, you're a true fan when make-believe characters, a simple picture or a realization of something makes you cry.
Well, I mean, for example, they did that pretty damn good. They made us care about in a very small amount of 2 seasons, give a damn about a guy we saw his face all of a couple of seconds, and a puppet.
Yeah. A guy in a fucking bucket helmet.
Yeah, and which I actually have right behind me. I actually went
How much is it? I want a Baby Yoda. Are they worth getting?
I think so, yes. I have a Baby Yoda my wife got me for Christmas. It's that one that does the noises. And then I was up at Walmart the other day and I saw they had Jin Djarin and the child Star Wars toys. So I was like, fuck it, I'm picking these up.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that if they reading the current comics, I'm listening to people because I've got a thing where reading is a bit hard for me at times.
Mm-hmm.
So listening to people talking about the comics, there was a girl who fell in love with Vader. Like she was obsessed with him.
Have a good one, Jim the Viking. Enjoy dinner, buddy.
Yeah, see a bit, Jim, where she was in love with Vader, like obsessed with him, right? And she's there.
Admiral Dahlia was in love with the Emperor.
Yeah, but this girl, she was like she repaired Vader, right? And she walked up and she's like, Vader, and he sat there and he lifted his helmet up and he turned and he looked at her, right? And she started going on about how they'd be good together, how she could rule beside him, because she could get the masses on side, and he was staring at her. To me, I don't know if he was judging if she's a test or if she's being serious. But then she's there and she looks and she's like, I could be your new Padme. And then he just looked at her and she bent in closer to give him a kiss. And there was a red glow in his helmet as he ignited his lightsaber through her heart.
Yeah, bad choice of words there, lady.
Yeah. I would just love, in canon, I would just love to see a Jedi, someone fighting Vader, just look up at him and he's using the Force, reaching out, not Ahsoka, but a new guy, someone who knew him from the Academy, Anakin, right? And he's like, Anakin, what the hell have you become?
Well, actually, in some ways, that happens in the Last Jedi series.
Really?
Yes, there is a character. Yes, in the Scholastics, you have a set of books that actually have kind of their own continuity. They're not separated canon, but they do have a focused continuity. It's called, first one was called Jedi Apprentice. It's a series that deals with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan as his Padawan. It starts out with him, Obi-Wan, and him taking Obi-Wan as his Padawan. Here's the thing. He doesn't want him. There's a reason why. Then the next set of books was called the Jedi Quest series, and this deals with Obi-Wan teaching Anakin through the Jedi Academy. And there's this antagonist in there, and his name's escaped. Ferris, I think is his name. He's the guy down here he's the guy down here in these books right here.
Yeah.
His name's Ferris. He was a Jedi. He was at the Academy just like Anakin, and they had a bit of a rivalry with each other. And eventually he leaves the Order at the end. And then he is the main protagonist in The Last Jedi, which takes place after Revenge of the Sith. And then you flash forward to another series called let me grab it real quick because now the name is escaping me. That Last Jedi. Oh fuck, where did they go? Anyway, there's another series that takes place that brings him and Obi-Wan back, or him and Darth Vader back together at the end, and kind of closes up that story arc.
Yeah, but I would love, honestly, just see someone like there, or even because I love long-lived races, because you could do so much with them, right? Or you could even have someone after Rey's gone and just have him there and say, I knew Anakin, and they're like, what happened to him? And then you just hear Vader's breathing in his head, and he looks and goes, he was lost for a while, but he came back to us in the end.
There is a book called Tatooine's Ghost. It is Leia and Han go back to Tatooine, and this is a point Leia is still dealing with the fact that Vader is her father.
Yeah.
She has not made peace. She does not make peace with this right away like Luke does.
No, because Luke got to see the Anakin in him.
Yeah, she never saw that. She's never.
Yeah.
Actually, she sees him as a Force ghost, and at one point, she says, "You tried to destroy it." He goes, "I saved the Force, although that wasn't my intent," or something like that was said in the Thrawn books. I can't remember.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Thrawn books. It was before that. And in Tatooine's Ghost, she's on there and she meets one of Anakin's old buddies from the prequels, and he tells her about Anakin from then. So she gets this insight that Anakin was something else at one point in time. So one of the other great things about the EU was the connective tissue to it is we saw a lot of these people grow. I watched, Han and Leia get married. Han and Leia have 3 kids. I watched those 3 kids grow up. I watched 2 of them die.
Yeah.
I watched Chewbacca die. Anakin, Jason Solo, I watched Jaina Solo get married. I watched Leia go from being a senator to the leader of the Republic to Jedi Knight. Coran Horn, Wedge Antilles, many characters, and some book characters became very popular that they went off and they would become central to things like the NJO and Legacy and Fate of the Jedi. So there was so much beauty in what they were writing, and yes, it unfortunately, as we say, all good things come to an end. This is where it gets bad. Okay, folks. This is where the continuity starts to go to hell.
Hey, the Clone Wars is good.
I didn't say it wasn't good. But this is where EU continuity starts going to hell.
Oh, okay.
It's really bad. This is where they made the big mistake. This is where the Canon stuff came in. So the Clone Wars came out, or Attack of the Clones comes out, folks. We have in between that to Return of the Jedi. Dark Horse really went into a tight-knit storyline on their comics. They were talking about, they were down to days, weeks, months after the Battle of Geonosis. This is how they had their timeline. Del Rey did not do that many books, per se. They only did 1, 2, 3, I think about 6 or 7 books, really, of the Clone Wars. One with Anakin, one with Obi-Wan, one with Yoda, one with Mace, 2 with Alia Secura as a doctor, and I think that was it. Labyrinth of Evil was technically considered a prequel to Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
So, but this is where things get a little crazy. Because also, I forgot these books. Karen Traviss did, the Arc. And she created the whole thing with the Mandalorians being the ones actually training the clone troopers on Geonosis. She starts making an entire... She really is the architect of the Mandalorian culture throughout the books. And then the Clone Wars comes out, and not the Clone Wars micro series. That's down here. That was good. Then they did these little comics that, if you wanted to keep them, that's fine. Then you get this show, The Clone Wars, Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Then you have their little digest. These are both digest stuff. And Karen Traviss had finished up her Republic Commando series and was now doing Imperial Commando. She got one of the books done and basically there was a big argument about, they wanted her basically to try to retcon everything she had created because Dave Filoni had kind of, basically shit on everything she created. Don't get me wrong, I love Dave Filoni's work, but he shit on it. That's just no way around it. And she basically got told, tough shit, your stuff is below T-canon, or however they wanted to put it, and she quit. She did not create another story. She didn't really bash them. That's when she quit.
More, I'm done.
What's up?
No, she was like basically more, you know what? I'm done.
I'm done.
Yeah. It's like, you have fun with your thing. I'm not going to bash you. Just don't involve me anymore. Bye, bitches.
And this is where things start to get crazy, because the Clone Wars had ended. The comic book had ended. The comics and the books, that whole storyline was pretty much over, except for following up with the Imperial Commandos. And that was post Return of the Jedi. But because the entire Mandalorian history had been changed, she's like, I'm not doing this. Forget it. And then they tried to incorporate. This was where the big problem also comes in. Trying to incorporate Star Wars: The Clone Wars into the book and comic canon was a bad idea. It cannot fit without a nightmare of problems. And this is really where the people started saying this is getting way too damn confusing. It's getting too crazy. Dude, I'm telling you what, I tried to keep up with the shit, and it was hard for me. And I got to a point I even said, okay, look, I'm not going to compare these, because it was impossible.
Yes.
I mean, it was impossible to wrap my head around it. Certain things. It was like, for me, trying to bring the Marvel comics into the Dark Horse era and trying to make them all fit. Sorry, it just doesn't work. You can say it works, but I've tried it, and it's not good. But this is really where things started to go downhill for the EU. This is really where the first nail in the coffin was for the EU. It was right in this area when this stuff started coming out. Now, don't get me wrong. I love this stuff. I love the micro series. I have the micro series. Fucking loved it.
It's now available on Disney Plus as well.
Yeah, I have the DVDs. Wasn't this what was this on? This was on Cartoon Network, wasn't it?
Yeah. So was the Clone Wars.
Yeah, this was first time on the Cartoon Network on the CN. Yeah, that's right. Clone Wars was on this cartoon. And it was like literally 5-minute quick little takes, and we were like, dude, I gotta go. Star Wars is coming on.
Yeah.
It's only 5 minutes long. I don't give a fuck. Star Wars is coming on. Did you hear me? What part of Star Wars is coming on TV do you not understand? It's only for 5 minutes. Good, then you can wait.
I mean, whenever I get back from Comic-Con or something like that, or watching things, because I'm in a house with two people who aren't, well, one person who's not a nerd and the other person who's a fake nerd, right? And my sister's a completely not a fake fucking nerd. She calls a lightsaber a lightsaber. And I'm not, okay. Because there's a guy who she talks to who, if you translate lightsaber in his language, it translates as light. Roughly.
Oh, really?
That's why she calls it a lightsaber. She has not watched Star Wars.
And like I said, this is really where this is where I started seeing a lot of the schism in the EU fandom.
Yeah.
We were, at this point, we're all getting on, I have people in the military who I've gravitated towards who are geeks and nerds, and we were big Star Wars fans, and some of us huge EU fans.
Yes.
And we started, and when you ran into an EU fan, when you ran into someone who was into something, you wanted to gravitate toward, because you're like, you had no fucking idea when you're going to meet another person like that again. Back then. Now it's a lot easier. Now we can do this like we've been doing, but back then we couldn't do that. So to get to actually have a conversation with someone, you'd start out something, turn into you thought it was going to be a 5-minute conversation. All of a sudden you find out you're Star Wars EU fans. Next thing you know, it's 12.
I'm going to give you a smile on your face. Our mutual friend Bionic Betty Bun, at times, through the times that I've known her, she has been in a Star Wars EU book club.
Oh, sweet! I never thought.
Do you know Katala Laris?
Nah.
If you're over at DM Cocker, she's around in a few things, right?
Okay.
but she knows this off by heart. I was trying to get her in here, but she's on Arizona time, and so she's unconscious right now.
Ah, gotcha.
But
and this is we're about 20 minutes left, and so we're going to schedule back down to, we're going to get to basically the end of the current EU.
Yeah.
I remember this. I remember when I heard George Lucas was, selling Disney or selling Lucasfilm to Disney. And a buddy of mine, one of the guys that was in the Air Force with, we were told that, it was going on. Kathleen Kennedy, they signed it. We said, well, what do you think is going to happen? It's like, I don't know. And then we found out they were going to do a trilogy series. They were like, do you think they're going to do the Yuuzhan Vong War? Do you think they're going to do anything? And we're basically talking about the tail end of the EU, and basically it's what happened to it at the end. There was quite a few of us speculating what was going to happen with the EU. And then news broke that they were getting rid of the canon. They were getting rid of the old canon. That the only things that were going to be canon was the 6 movies, the 3 that were coming out, the Clone Wars, Rebels was planned. There was one comic book Dark Horse did that ended up becoming considered dual canon. But, that was it. And then, that was it. We were told we're not doing the EU stuff. We might pick stuff from the EU, but we're not going to do it. And I looked back and I kind of got a little teary-eyed because I know. And here's why. This is really why. Because I knew there was going to be no adventures of these characters. Because for me, the sequels, that's not Luke, that's not Leia, that's not Han, that's not Chewie. That's not Lando.
The only time I saw Chewie being Chewie was that any of it made sense to me was when Leia died and he freaked out. That's the only time any of that made sense to me.
Oh, that and when he shot Kylo.
Well, yeah, that does make sense, but the thing is, I'm just saying from everything we've seen, because we've never seen his relationship with Kylo. We've never seen him interacting with Kylo.
Yeah, I know. And see, that's the other thing that kind of throws me for a loop. He's supposed to be Han's kid. In the books, Chewie's the babysitter.
Yeah.
Chewie is the twins' guardian. And he takes that job very seriously.
Isn't there a book where Chewie dies of old age and there's like multiple generations of the family there to pay their respects to him because he's basically looked after all of them?
Yeah, in some form or fashion. Sequels didn't need Han, Leia, Luke. The whole EU proved that by creating great stories, new cultures, races. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Absolutely. They were able to, and what a lot of times they did very smartly. They would introduce new characters that people gravitated towards, and they would be able to say, okay, people like this character. I'm going to put them in more. Winter was a very popular character with women in Star Trek or Star Wars.
Can I tell you something that was announced the other day, and that's going to make you so fucking happy? Okay.
Yeah.
They are, the way Final Fantasy VII was remade, current graphics and everything like that from the ground up?
I've heard of that. I'm not a Final Fantasy guy, but
no, but you know the way they did that?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. So basically, they're remaking KOTOR and KOTOR 2 from the ground up again.
Oh,
and
God,
it's going to be current canon. It's going to be canon. And from everything I've heard, Kathleen Kennedy has no hands in it. Dave Filoni is in charge of it.
I could definitely see that. I would definitely be over. Oh, I'll give an updated KOTOR a try. There's no way around. I wouldn't do that. And this is where I think a lot of people, there was so much backlash from people that thought we were so pathetic because we wanted the expanded universe to continue. The thing was, we try to explain to me, it's like, we're not saying you have to not make new canon stuff. We're just asking for an occasional story now and again of Legends canon. And you want to slap a Legends label on it, we don't care. We're not stupid. We can tell the difference between the books. We know how to tell. You slap a Legends label, we're going to know it's the old canon, not the new canon. And I was fine with that. But like I said, the thing is these are not characters I've grown up with. The EU is what I grew up with. The characters in the EU are what I've grown up with.
Mark Hamill even cried and said, "This is not Luke Skywalker," and he broke down on set. Okay. So about that thing. Sorry, about Final Fantasy VII, Jim. Final Fantasy VII, the game, isn't finished being released. This is only the first chapter. The whole storyline will be there. It's just that this is only the first chapter. But yeah, Mark Hamill himself said that the Luke Skywalker that people are getting these days are not Luke Skywalker. And on TikTok, I'm on Star Wars. I follow Star Wars TikTok. And there's so many people who are saying that Luke Skywalker in Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker makes sense. And I'm like, no.
But here's where the thing is, this is what cracks me up when somebody says that, like, Lucasfilm execs reminds fans that canon is fake anyway. It doesn't make, yes, but it's storytelling. How many people are, what is it, Warhammer 4K or something?
Warhammer 40K, yeah.
Yeah, there are people who are massively invested in the story and the lore of Warhammer.
Yeah.
And yes, is it fake? Doesn't matter. It's still a world that we like to visit. My Star Wars is stuff I like to visit. I like to visit these characters. I like to reminisce with it because like I said, I've watched a lot of them grow up. I mean, yeah, it was on paper. I watched Anakin be born. I watched Anakin Solo from his birth to his death. Jason's pretty much the same thing. Jaina gets married. There was, and when you have Kathleen Kennedy says there was no material, I literally wanted to be like, were you smoking crack or something, lady?
The guy interviewing her, did you see his face? It's just like,
I think I did. I think it'd be kind of like, there's been EU material since '76, lady.
Yeah, what the fuck are you barking on about? A librarian, I saw this librarian on TikTok when that happened. Kathleen Kennedy went, "There's no material for us to draw from," and she just looked over at an entire shelving unit called Star Wars. And she was just like, the hell? And she rubbed her eyes and then she looked back and it was empty. She's like, oh, okay.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when I saw that, I took a picture of my my bookshelf here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves of nothing but Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly.
Star Wars books, Star Wars comics. That's all that is.
Yeah.
I have an entire bookshelf I had to create. I had to dedicate just to it. If I still had some of the stuff I used to have, it'd be almost 2 books. At one time, I almost had a bookshelf and a half full of nothing but Star Wars.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think that the whole thing, I'm going to wrap this up real quick, Revan. The history of Star Wars EU was very rich. It really satisfied a lot of fans. Was everything a gem? No. You got your Thrawn trilogy, and then you got your Crystal Star every now and again. You know, it was unfortunately that shit happens.
Yeah, you have a mixture between Darth Revan and the Crying Mountain.
Yeah. It just depends. Some people, and if you notice, most of those books that people didn't like, you notice those authors never came back.
Yeah. They didn't.
No.
But
most of the time, if it wasn't a popular one, they didn't get a second book.
Exactly. But MB, I'm just saying, look at the current comics now. There are a load of comics and that are canon, and you may find some that you will enjoy, like Vader hunting down Jedi, like different characters and everything like that.
Disney failed on Canon because they couldn't be bothered even watching the original films. You can tell they are clueless in the interviews. Even the film stars have no clue what they are. And yeah, I would have to say so. Look, I'm sorry, but if you're an actor and you're going to take on something that you know is iconic, maybe do a little fucking research into the universe you're about to enter. Because you can't be, I don't care if you're an actor or not, you're not big into Star Wars. You have to know that this is going to be a big deal. Unless somehow these actors were living under rocks.
Yes.
That being said, we have to remember, the actors don't normally get to see the final product until everybody else does.
Honestly, one or two of the actors had to be a Star Wars fan, and they had to be really disappointed with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, they just, I don't know what they were thinking. To me,
I was so disappointed with Ian McDermott when he turned around and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to be Palpatine," and everything. And I'm like, "So Palpatine's just a paycheck to you?"
Yeah.
Which it's sad because we love these characters. And we love to hate these characters so much. And to realize that to them, like Q, it's just a paycheck. It's like...
Well, at least they'll admit to that. I have no problem with them. I mean, Harrison Ford flat out said when they asked about changing Han shot first, he flat out said, "I don't care."
Yeah, he hates Star Wars.
He'd rather do Indiana Jones versus Han Solo. And he wanted, it's no secret he wanted to be killed off in Return of the Jedi, which is probably how they got him to do Force Awakens.
That's actually why they got him to do Force Awakens. And the whole Force Ghost of him in Episode 7 was actually recorded during Force Awakens because they couldn't get him back.
Whatever. I've only seen Rise of Skywalker once, and I think that was once too many.
I recently saw it for me. That's why I remember so much.
I know. I remember you telling me about that. I felt bad for you.
I have some very drunk friends with me.
Yeah. So, Revan, what do you got coming up, man? I know.
So I'm working on a Bad Batch review. Then my friend, she's going to advertise her channel on mine, where she's going to host a Guild Wars stream. Then we've got another Jackbox stream, and then on Monday we're talking about in another stream we're talking about Bad Batch, and then sometime after the 10th we're having another Jackbox stream featuring the internet's favorite nurse to be by on the credit button.
I couldn't help it. I had to throw this one on just for fun. May the force be with you, motherfucker.
Yes.
He ain't going out like no bitch.
No. He so desperately wants to come back as Mace Windu.
Hey, he fell out a window. Darth Maul fell down a shaft. It could happen.
Yeah.
Big world. For anybody who remembers those days.
You're old, man.
I'm 41.
You're fucking old.
So that's awesome, man. Look forward to seeing your stuff. Look forward to your Bad Batch review. I'll probably do 1, 2 later on. I generally like to do my reviews like that. I generally like to give myself a week after something's come out, or 2 weeks. I like to digest and think about it. I'm not one for doing them right when it's fresh in my head. I like to digest things. But
for me, I try when it's weekly. I try to get it out that week, so it's still within the algorithm that people are still talking about episode 1, so they instead of talking about episode 2.
Yeah, I gotcha. like I said, I'll probably do one sometime this weekend. Probably, I'll probably put it. What I'll probably do is it's just going to be a recording upload. So I'm going to do it, just schedule it for later. But I may work on that today or tomorrow. I haven't decided yet. Well, actually, it'll be most likely tomorrow because tonight I am going to be on Vile Mike's Jet Nerdity stream. It's going to be
nice.
He's doing Star Wars, obviously, and I believe he said, and if I'm not mistaken, he's doing a lot, including EU stuff. And he actually, when I was talking with him on a previous stream, we were talking about some stuff. He's like, "Fuck, dude, you know?" He's like, "Wow, you know more than I thought you did." And I actually said, "Well, thank you. I take that as a hell of a compliment."
That is a good compliment. Congratulations. Was this? He was. Literally, he got his own lightsaber color because he asked, and people are like, "Wait, you can do that?"
No, he did. Actually, he pretty much asked if he could have the purple lightsaber. I don't know how much of it is real.
I've seen it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's a clip. I'll send you the clip. There's a clip of him, and they're standing there, and it's like, "Can I have a lightsaber color? A unique one?" And he's like, "Because I can't really see mine." Is purple? Yeah. So they gave him a purple lightsaber.
And how many people wanted to get a purple lightsaber after that? A lot of people got a purple lightsaber after that.
Dude, the actor who played Plo Koon, voiced in the Clone Wars, right?
Yeah.
And the Jedi Temple Guards originally had blue lightsabers, and he's like, "No, they are Jedi hunters." He's like, "What do you mean? They're light-sided Jedi hunters. They're police. Give them something that people will go, shit, that's a cop's weapon." And now it's gold.
Makes sense. All right, everyone. I had a blast. I want to thank Potato Revan here for coming in. Man, we really, even in 90 minutes, there's so much more EU stuff.
There is.
Stuff. I'm going to have to do more EU ongoing. I'm just going to have to break it down into sections next time. But I thought for this, a nice little history look of EU and what it meant to people, what it means to people still. The EU's been down since for 7 years now, and you still have people like me who absolutely love it and cherish the history and the lore that came with it.
Yeah. As I said to you when you said, "What does Star Wars mean to you and why is it important?" And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And you're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, people have made friends over the EU. People have gotten married over the EU. People have bonded over it.
People have made lifelong friendships over the EU."
Yeah.
All right, everyone.
Yeah.
You have a blessed one. Peace and long life. Outro time.